The grand hall of the alien palace was silent except for the steady sound of banners swaying above. The queen sat on her throne, dressed in silver robes, her crown shining under the pale light of the ceiling lamps. She had called her people together because something impossible had happened. In front of her throne stood a set of armor. It was not ordinary armor. It was ancient, sacred, and carried the weight of countless battles. The armor had been broken for centuries. Generations of scholars, builders, and weapon masters had tried to repair it. All had failed. Yet today it stood whole again, polished and alive with faint energy, as if it had never been touched by time. The queen rose from her throne. Her voice echoed through the chamber. Who repaired this armor? Her soldiers shifted uneasily. Advisors whispered among themselves. No one answered. The queen's eyes narrowed, sharp and cold. To touch the relic without her command was forbidden. Whoever did this had risked death. From the crowd, a figure stepped forward. He was not tall, nor did he wear the colorful robes of the queen's people. His clothes were plain, marked with oil and dust. His hands were strong but scarred with years of work. He was a human engineer named Daniel. He lowered his head slightly. I repaired it, my queen. The hall erupted with noise. Gasps filled the air, and several guards rushed forward with their weapons raised. To them, it was unthinkable that an outsider, a human with no royal blood, had touched the most precious relic of their empire. The queen raised her hand, and the noise fell quiet again. Her golden eyes fixed on Daniel. You dare admit this in my hall? Do you know the crime you have committed? Daniel's voice remained steady. I did not mean disrespect. I saw the broken circuits, the burned alloys, the pieces that did not fit. I studied them, and I repaired them. That is my skill. I am an engineer. When I see something broken, I cannot walk away. Her advisors shouted in protest. One of them, a tall alien with crimson skin, stepped forward. My queen, this human has insulted our traditions. He should be punished. Another advisor, older and calmer, shook his head. Or perhaps we should ask how he succeeded when our best minds could not. There may be more to learn here. The queen listened but kept her gaze on Daniel. She walked down the steps of her throne, her robe trailing across the polished floor. Standing before the restored armor, she touched the shoulder plate. The suit hummed faintly, alive with hidden power. For centuries it had been nothing more than a lifeless shell. Now it was whole. She turned back to Daniel. Explain how you did this. Daniel stepped forward carefully. He did not bow as the others did but stood with quiet respect. Your people used alloys that resist time but crack under stress. The inner frame was locked by a design that required both pressure and release. No one had tried a dual method. I built a simple tool from scrap, applied human welding techniques, and the pieces responded. The energy core was not dead, only misaligned. I reconnected it. The queen studied him in silence. His words were plain, without pride, but his explanation carried logic. She sensed no lies. The hall remained tense. Guards still gripped their weapons. Advisors exchanged uncertain looks. At last, the queen's voice rang out again. A human has done what my empire could not. Perhaps it is a miracle. Or perhaps it is an insult. But either way, it cannot be ignored. She faced the hall. This man will not be executed. Not yet. He will prove himself. Bring another relic. Gasps filled the chamber again. The relics of the empire were sacred, each one a puzzle that had defeated generations. To give one to a human was unthinkable, yet the queen's word was law. Daniel's heart raced, but he did not step back. He understood the danger, yet something inside him told him this was only the beginning. The queen returned to her throne, her voice calm but heavy with command. Human, you have shown skill, but skill without loyalty is dangerous. You will face a trial. If you succeed, you will live. If you fail, your life ends. Daniel nodded once. I accept. The hall buzzed with whispers, half in fear and half in curiosity. The queen sat back, her eyes glowing faintly as she studied the human who had dared to touch her relic. For the first time in years, her empire faced a question with no clear answer. And in that silence, a strange thought passed through her mind. Perhaps this human was more than just an engineer. Perhaps he was the key her people had been waiting for. The relic was carried into the hall on a platform supported by 6 armored guards. It was larger than the armor, a strange device of crystal and metal, broken in many places. Faint marks of age ran across its surface. The queen's advisors whispered nervously as it was set before the throne. The queen lifted her hand to silence the room. Her golden eyes fixed on Daniel. This relic has resisted repair for 500 years. My best scholars have failed. You will attempt it? If you succeed, you prove your skill. If you fail, the punishment is death. Daniel felt the weight of her words settle in the air. Every eye in the hall turned to him. He did not bow. Instead, he stepped closer to the relic, running his hands gently over its cracked edges. His touch was careful, respectful, like that of a craftsman examining a piece of art. He spoke calmly. This device is more than metal. It is a core of energy shaped by design. It is not only broken. It is confused. The pieces fight each other instead of working together. The queen tilted her head slightly. She had heard many excuses from scholars over the years, but none had spoken in this way. Her chief advisor, the crimson-skinned one, sneered. He is pretending. He will fail as the others did. Daniel ignored him. He focused only on the relic. I will need tools. Simple ones. Heat, binding metal, and a way to measure the energy inside. The queen raised her hand again. Give him what he asks. The guards hesitated, but her voice carried no room for doubt. Soon, a set of tools was brought, welding rods, clamps, and a small energy reader. Daniel knelt beside the relic, studying it with patient eyes. Hours passed. The hall grew restless. The queen remained still, her gaze never leaving the human. Daniel carefully adjusted connections, welded cracked joints, and aligned crystals that had been bent out of place. His hands moved with steady confidence, as if he had done this all his life. At last, he paused. He placed the final crystal back into its frame and adjusted a small switch that had not been touched in centuries. The relic gave a low hum. Light spread across its surface, soft and steady, until the entire hall glowed with its power. Gasps filled the chamber. Advisors stepped back in shock. Guards tightened their grips on weapons, unsure if this was holy power or dangerous magic. The queen rose from her throne, her robe flowing behind her. She approached the relic, her face unreadable. She placed her hand upon it. The device pulsed warmly, alive for the first time in generations. For a long moment, the hall was silent. Then the queen turned to Daniel. You have done what was impossible. Daniel straightened. His voice was calm but tired. It was not impossible. It was only waiting for the right eyes to see. Her court broke into chaos. One advisor shouted, "This is unnatural. He is a danger to us." Another argued, "No, he is a gift. We should learn from him." The queen lifted her hand again, and the noise died. Her gaze hardened. Enough. This hall will not be a place of childish noise. She faced Daniel. You have skill beyond my people. But I must know why. No human has ever understood our relics. How is it that you, an outsider, can repair them? Daniel hesitated. He searched for the right words. Because I do not see limits. Your scholars worship these relics. I only see problems waiting for answers. To me, broken things are puzzles. Every puzzle can be solved if you listen to it long enough. The queen studied him carefully. She had ruled long enough to sense lies, yet his words carried only truth. There was no pride in his voice, only honesty. Still, her fury lingered. She paced slowly around him. Do you realize what you have done? You touched what was forbidden. You gave life to what was silent. Some will call you savior. Others will call you thief. I could end your life here and silence all questions. Daniel met her gaze. His voice was steady. You could. But if you do, your relics will remain mysteries. With me, they can be restored. That is your choice. The hall grew quiet again. The queen stood before him, tall and powerful, her golden eyes burning with thought. Finally, she turned and returned to her throne. Very well. The human lives? He will be placed under guard, but he will remain in my court. His knowledge is dangerous, but it is also valuable. I will decide his future. Daniel bowed his head slightly in acceptance. He knew his life was not safe, but he also knew he had crossed the first step into something greater. The queen sat in silence, her fingers tapping the arm of her throne. For the first time in years, she felt something she had long forgotten. It was not anger. It was not fear. It was curiosity. And deep inside her, she wondered if this human might change her empire forever. The next morning, Daniel was brought into a smaller chamber of the palace. The walls were decorated with glowing runes, symbols of power and history. In the center stood another relic, taller than Daniel himself, shaped like a broken tower. Its surface was covered with cracks, and its inner frame was twisted. The queen sat on a high seat at the far end, flanked by her advisors. Her guards lined the room, their weapons ready. The queen's golden eyes followed Daniel as he entered. This is your trial, she said. Her voice was calm, but it carried weight. This relic was once a beacon of communication for my ancestors. It has been silent for centuries. If you can repair it, you prove your worth. If you fail, the judgment will be death. Daniel stepped closer. His heart pounded, but his face remained steady. He examined the relic, running his fingers along the broken lines. The material was strange, harder than steel yet light as wood. Inside, faint wires and crystals formed a network that had once carried power. He spoke carefully. This is not only broken. It has been left alone for too long. Dust and age have made it weaker. If I force it, it will collapse. I will need patience, and I will need help. The queen raised her eyebrow. Help. Daniel nodded. Not hands to repair it, but hands to bring me the right tools and to clear the space. I cannot work if I am treated like a prisoner. I must work like an engineer. The crimson-skinned advisor stepped forward. My queen, this is foolish. He asks for freedom to disguise his escape. Daniel shook his head. I do not need freedom. I only need respect for the work. The relic deserves it. The queen studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded. Very well. Guards, give him what he asks, but do not leave him unwatched. At once, the chamber filled with movement. Servants brought brushes to clear dust, small lamps to bring light, and simple tools for cutting and bending. Daniel began his work. He removed cracked plates, setting them aside. He cleaned the crystal cores, each one glowing faintly when touched. He rewired broken connections with care, using both human welding and simple adjustments. Hours turned into a full day. Sweat ran down his face, but his hands did not stop. The queen watched silently, her face unreadable. The court whispered among themselves. Some were impressed. Others were suspicious. Finally, Daniel stepped back. He wiped his forehead and spoke clearly. It is ready. The room held its breath. The queen rose slowly from her seat. Then show us. Daniel placed his hand on the core of the relic. He pressed a small lever he had realigned. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the relic shuddered. A deep hum filled the chamber, and light spread across the tower. Symbols carved into its surface glowed with life. Suddenly, the air above the relic shimmered. A projection appeared, a map of the stars. Lines of light connected different points, forming paths across the galaxy. Voices echoed faintly, like whispers from long ago, messages left in the relic's memory. The Queen's court gasped. Some fell to their knees, whispering prayers. Others stepped back in fear. The Queen walked forward slowly, her golden eyes fixed on the living relic. She touched its glowing surface, and the projection shifted, showing her ancestors' worlds, their fleets, their ancient roots of power. Her voice was soft but clear. You have awakened the voice of my people. Daniel lowered his hand. His body trembled with exhaustion, but his eyes were calm. It was always there. It only needed to be heard again. The crimson-skinned advisor snarled. This human is dangerous. He now holds the secrets of our ancestors. If we let him live, he will take control. Another advisor, older and wiser, shook his head. Or he will give us back what we lost. My queen, we cannot deny what we see. He is not enemy. He is chance. The queen stood silent for a long time. Her gaze shifted between Daniel and the glowing relic. Then she raised her hand for silence. Enough, she said. This man has proven his skill again. But skill alone does not give trust. From this day, he remains under my watch. He will not walk free. But neither will he be silenced. He will serve my court as long as I command. Daniel bowed his head slightly. He understood her words. He was not free, but he was alive. And more than that, he had earned a place no human had ever held. The queen looked at him once more. There was no fury in her eyes this time, only thought. She wondered if this human was a tool to be used or a key to something greater. And as the relic continued to glow behind them, she knew that her empire had already changed. The palace buzzed with unrest after the relic's awakening. Word spread quickly beyond the throne room. Servants whispered about the human who had touched the forbidden devices and brought them back to life. Soldiers argued in the barracks, some calling him a danger, others calling him a savior. By evening, the entire court was divided. The queen sat in her private chamber, her crown set aside, her thoughts heavy. She had ruled for years, always certain of her decisions. But this time her mind was unsettled. The human had proven his skill not once, but twice. Yet trust was harder to earn than victory. Her chief advisor entered quietly. It was the crimson-skinned elder named Veyron. His steps were sharp, his voice sharp as well. My queen, this human must not stay. He is a threat. Already your people whisper that he is chosen by fate. If they believe him greater than their queen, the empire will weaken. The queen turned her golden eyes toward him. Do you fear one man so much, Veyron? I fear the ideas he brings, Veyron answered quickly. Ideas spread faster than fire. He has no loyalty to our people. He is only a wanderer, a stranger. If you allow him to rise, he will break the very order you built. Before the queen could reply, another advisor stepped into the chamber. It was Lyra, an older woman with silver hair and calm eyes. She bowed before speaking. Forgive me, my queen, but I cannot stay silent. This human may be our chance. For years we have lived in decline, watching our relics rust while enemies grow strong. He gives us power again. Why reject the gift? Veyron's face darkened. A gift that comes from an outsider is not a gift. It is poison. The queen silenced them with a raised hand. Her voice was firm. Enough. You both speak truth, but truth does not always share one path. I will watch the human myself before I decide. He will stay under guard, but his hands will not be idle. I will see if his skill is matched by loyalty. That night, Daniel was escorted to a guarded chamber in the palace. The room was simple but secure, with 2 soldiers at the door. He sat on a bench, exhausted but unable to sleep. His mind replayed the queen's words again and again. He had earned survival, but not trust. From the narrow window he could see the stars above. He wondered how far they stretched, how many secrets they held, and why fate had placed him in this alien palace. He had never sought power. He only wanted to fix broken things. Yet now he stood between an empire's fear and its hope. The next morning, Daniel was summoned again, but not to the grand hall. Instead, he was taken to the palace gardens. The queen waited by a fountain carved in the shape of a dragon. Birds circled above, their wings flashing with color. "Do you know why I called you here?" she asked. Daniel shook his head. "No, my queen." She studied him for a moment. "The court is divided. Some call you savior, others call you danger. I must see which you are. So I ask you, why do you risk your life for relics that are not yours?" Daniel looked at the water in the fountain, then back at her. His voice was steady. "Because broken things speak to me. I cannot walk away from them. Whether they belong to me or not does not matter. If something can be repaired, I feel it must be done." The queen's expression softened for a moment, but only briefly. "Your words are simple. Yet I wonder if your heart is simple as well. Some will try to use you for their gain. Some will try to destroy you. You must be ready." Daniel nodded. "I understand." Just then, a messenger hurried into the garden, bowing deeply. "My queen, forgive me, but there is news. Scouts report a hostile fleet moving near our borders. Their numbers are great." The queen's gaze hardened. The timing was troubling. Enemies moved now, when her court was divided and her relics only beginning to stir again. She turned back to Daniel. "Perhaps fate has placed you here for a reason, human. You repaired our armor. You awakened our relics. Now we may need you for something greater." Daniel felt the weight of her words. He had not sought destiny, but destiny had found him. Meanwhile, in the shadows of the palace, Veyron met with others who shared his doubts. His voice was low and cold. "The queen may trust him, but I do not. If we allow this human to rise, he will take everything from us. We must act before it is too late." The seeds of betrayal had been planted. And as the empire's enemies drew closer, Daniel's greatest test was about to begin. The palace council met in the war chamber, a circular hall with maps of the stars projected in the air above. Red markers spread across one side of the galaxy, each symbol representing ships of an enemy fleet. The queen sat at the head of the table, her face calm but her eyes sharp. Scouts had confirmed it. The hostile forces were moving closer every hour. Their ships were faster and stronger than anything the Empire had faced in decades. The court buzzed with fear. Some whispered that the Empire was too weak to survive, while others demanded immediate action. Daniel stood quietly at the edge of the room, guarded but not ignored. His presence was unusual in a chamber of leaders, yet the queen had allowed him to stay. She wanted to see if his hands, which had repaired relics, might now help save her people. One general, a tall alien with silver armor, spoke first. "Our fleets are not ready, my queen. We cannot match their speed. We cannot match their firepower." Veyron, the crimson-skinned advisor, leaned forward. His voice was sharp. "This is the result of trusting outsiders and wasting time with relics. We should focus on building what we know, not chasing dreams." The queen did not respond to him. Instead, she turned to Daniel. "You have seen our relics. You have awakened them. Tell me, human, do they hold more than we realize? Daniel hesitated, all eyes fixed on him. He stepped closer to the projected map. The relics are not just symbols of the past. They were built for war, for defense, for survival. The armor was meant to protect rulers. The beacon was meant to guide fleets. If they are waking now, perhaps they were waiting for this moment. The room fell into silence. Even the generals stopped their muttering. The queen leaned back in her chair. You believe the relics can fight against this fleet? Daniel nodded slowly. Not alone. But if we understand them, they can give us an edge. They are not broken anymore. They are speaking again. We must listen. Veyron slammed his hand on the table. This is madness. He is twisting your mind, my queen. We do not know his true purpose. For all we know, he brought this invasion upon us. Daniel's eyes met Veyron's. I am no soldier, and I have no army. But I know machines. I know how to hear them. If you want to win, let me keep working. The queen raised her hand, silencing them all. Her voice was calm but heavy. Enough. The enemy approaches, and my court will not waste time with bickering. The human will be given access to the relics. He will continue his work under my command. Gasps filled the chamber, but none dared defy her word. That night, Daniel was led to a hidden vault beneath the palace. It was a chamber filled with relics, weapons, devices, and armor, each one broken and silent. Dust covered them, but he could feel their weight, their history. The queen herself entered the vault with him. She walked among the relics, her fingers brushing lightly over their cold surfaces. These are the last treasures of my people. If you can awaken them, we may stand a chance. But if you fail, this empire will fall. Daniel nodded. Then I will not fail. He spent hours studying the relics, taking notes, building small tools from scraps. The queen remained silent, watching him. She could see the determination in his eyes. He was not working for power or reward. He was working because the relics called to him, and he could not ignore them. Days passed, and the invasion fleet drew closer. Scouts brought more dire reports. Entire systems had fallen without resistance. Fear spread through the empire like fire. But in the vault, progress was being made. One by one, relics hummed to life under Daniel's hands. A weapon that had once been a dead shell fired beams of light across the room. A shield generator flickered back into being, forming a glowing barrier. Each success brought hope. One evening, the queen stepped closer as Daniel finished repairing a smaller relic. It was a circular device, glowing faintly. He explained, this one is a command node. It links with others. Together, they could control entire fleets. The queen's golden eyes widened slightly. She touched the device, feeling its steady pulse. For the first time in many years, she felt hope stronger than fear. But far away, in the dark corners of space, the hostile fleet advanced. Their ships were vast, their weapons unmatched. And as they moved closer, their leaders sent a single message across the stars: surrender, or be destroyed. The queen stood in her throne room when the message arrived. Her people waited for her answer. Her voice was steady, filled with quiet fire. Tell them this empire does not surrender. Tell them we are ready. Behind her, Daniel knew the relics were not finished, but they were waking. And when the battle came, he prayed they would answer the call. The first attack came at dawn. The skies above the Empire's capital darkened as enemy warships descended from orbit. Their hulls were black and jagged, shaped like blades cutting through the stars. Thousands of smaller fighters poured out, filling the horizon with shadows. The city below trembled. Civilians ran through the streets, and soldiers scrambled into formation. Alarms echoed across the palace towers, and the queen stood tall at the highest balcony, her golden eyes fierce. Form the lines, she commanded. "We will not fall today." At her side stood Daniel, his clothes still marked with oil and dust from the vault. He was no soldier, but he had prepared the Queen's forces with something new. The relics he had restored were ready to be tested in battle. The Queen's armor, once broken, now shone like a star. It covered her body with plates of silver and blue, glowing faintly with energy. When she moved, the armor moved with her, light and powerful. Daniel had not only repaired it, he had refined it. The Queen carried the weight of her ancestors, and now she carried the work of a human as well. The enemy fleet struck. Beams of red light rained down from the sky, tearing into the city walls. Towers crumbled, and fire spread. The Empire's ships rose to meet them, but they struggled against the sheer size and number of the enemy. Daniel's hands gripped the railing of the balcony. He watched the chaos with fear but also with determination. "The shield generator," he said quickly. "It must be deployed now." The Queen nodded. She gave the signal, and deep within the palace grounds, the relic shield he had repaired came alive. A glowing dome spread across the capital, stopping the next wave of enemy fire. Explosions shook against its barrier, but the shield held. The people cheered, their fear turning into courage. The Queen drew her blade, its edge glowing with the same energy as her armor. She turned to her generals. "The humans' hands have given us protection. Now we take the fight to the sky." Her warships rose, moving in formations guided by the beacon relic Daniel had reactivated. For the first time in centuries, the old star paths lit up across the fleet's command screens, showing them routes of attack and defense. The soldiers moved with precision, their ships fighting as one. The enemy was fierce, but the Queen's forces no longer fought blindly. Every move was guided, every strike was sharp. Slowly, they began to push back. Yet the enemy was not defeated. Their largest ship, a massive vessel shaped like a fortress, hovered above the city. Its weapons glowed with power enough to break the shield. The Queen narrowed her eyes. "That ship must fall, or we all fall with it." Daniel stepped forward, his voice steady despite the fear in his chest. "Then you need more than fire. You need the relics working together. The armor, the beacon, the shield, they are connected. They were built to be one system." The Queen looked at him sharply. "Can you make them work as one?" Daniel hesitated only a moment. "Yes, but I'll need to be on the battlefield with you." Gasps filled the generals around them. Varen sneered. "This is madness. A human has no place in battle." But the Queen ignored him. She turned to Daniel. "Then come with me." Moments later, they boarded the Queen's command ship. The vessel rose into the storm of battle, its hull glowing under the relic shield's protection. Daniel worked at the control panels, linking the beacon's guidance to the Queen's armor and the city's shield. His hands moved fast, his mind racing. The Queen stood at the front, her blade in hand, her armor glowing brighter than ever. She looked at Daniel once, then at the massive enemy fortress in the sky. "Now," Daniel said. "Strike now." The Queen gave the order. Her fleet surged forward, guided perfectly by the beacon's paths. The shield redirected enemy fire, bending it away. And the Queen herself led the charge, her warship cutting through enemy lines like a spear. They reached the fortress. Cannons roared, fire burned, and the battle shook the skies. The Queen leapt from her command ship, her relic armor carrying her through the air. She landed on the enemy fortress, blade raised, and cut through its outer hull with a single strike of glowing energy. Daniel watched from the ship, his heart pounding. The systems he had repaired were working in harmony, human hands and alien legacy together. The fortress cracked under the assault. Flames burst from within, and finally, with one last strike from the Queen, the massive vessel exploded in the sky. The enemy fleet faltered, their courage broken. One by one, their ships scattered into retreat. The capital was safe. The people cheered, voices rising like thunder. The queen returned to the balcony, her armor still glowing, her presence unshaken. At her side stood Daniel, exhausted but alive. The queen raised her blade. Today we stood as one. Today we remembered who we are. And though the court remained divided, though whispers of doubt still lingered, no one could deny the truth: the empire had survived because of a human. The smoke of battle still hung above the capital, drifting like dark clouds across the sky. The streets were filled with cheering voices, songs of victory rising from soldiers and civilians alike. For the first time in generations, the empire had stood against an overwhelming force and survived. The queen walked through the palace courtyard, her armor glowing faintly as it settled into silence. At her side, Daniel moved carefully, exhausted from the long struggle. His hands were marked with cuts and burns, but his eyes carried the steady calm of someone who had seen his work bring life. Crowds gathered around them, bowing deeply before their queen. But as Daniel passed, people's eyes followed him too. Whispers spread through the air. The human, they said, the outsider who saved us. Some looked with awe, others with doubt, but none could deny his part in the victory. Inside the palace, the queen dismissed her guards and called for Daniel alone. The throne room was quiet, filled only with the soft glow of the relics she had once thought forever dead. Now they hummed faintly, alive with power, as if they too celebrated. The queen turned to him, her golden eyes steady. "You have given my people what they had forgotten: hope. Tell me, Daniel, why do you risk so much for a world not your own?" Daniel hesitated. He had no grand answer. His voice was quiet but honest. "Because broken things call to me. And your empire, your relics, your people, they were broken. I could not walk away." The queen studied him for a long moment. Her voice softened, though it still carried the weight of command. "You speak as if destiny guided you here." Daniel shook his head. "Not destiny. Just choice. I choose to repair what others leave behind." The queen's lips curved slightly, not quite a smile but something close. She turned back to her throne, lifting her blade, its edge glowing with faint light. "Then I choose as well. From this day forward, you are no longer a prisoner or an outsider. You are architect of the relics, first of your kind in this court." Daniel bowed his head. "I will serve with all I have." Her declaration spread quickly. Some in the court welcomed it, seeing the future it promised. Others, like Varen, hid their anger behind bowed heads, already plotting in silence. But no one dared challenge the queen's decision that day. In the days that followed, Daniel worked side by side with alien craftsmen and scholars. At first, many distrusted him, but slowly they saw his methods, his patience, and his willingness to share knowledge. He taught them new ways of thinking, not worshipping relics as unreachable wonders but studying them as puzzles waiting to be solved. The queen often visited his workshop. She watched him repair, rebuild, and sometimes fail, only to try again. She admired not only his skill but his persistence. To her people, failure was shame. To him, failure was only another step forward. One evening, as the sun set over the capital, the queen and Daniel stood together on the highest balcony. The city lights flickered below, and beyond them, the stars stretched endless across the sky. "The enemy will return," she said quietly. "This victory will not stop them forever. They will come again, stronger." Daniel nodded. "Then we must be stronger too. Not just with relics, but with unity. Your people are divided. Some trust me, others hate me. If we are to survive, we must stand as one." The queen turned her gaze to him. "And you believe you can give them that unity?" Daniel's answer was simple. "No. Only you can. But I can help you build the tools to make it possible." For the first time, the queen smiled fully. It was rare, almost strange to see, but it was real. Perhaps you are more than an engineer, human. Perhaps you are the piece my empire was missing. They stood in silence for a while, watching the stars. The relics hummed faintly in the halls behind them, as if promising a future not yet written. Far away, in the cold reaches of space, enemy ships regrouped, preparing for another strike. But in the heart of the empire, something new had begun, a bond between a queen and a human, between an ancient legacy and a simple choice to repair what was broken. And though the road ahead was uncertain, one truth was clear: the empire would never again look at humans as weak or unworthy. For in their darkest hour, it was a human who had stepped forward, unarmed, unafraid, and changed their destiny forever.